Welcome. It's still morning, so good morning to you all on this beautiful, beautiful Friday. We are so glad you're here today. My name is Christine Meredith. I'm the Chief Advancement Officer at Oklahoma Christian, and I am thrilled with the success of this Survivor Tree Plaza that we have been able to create here on campus through many of you all helping us do that. And so the voices and the fellowship here this morning are already wonderful, and it's just going to continue as we go out to the dedication space after lunch today. So welcome. So glad you're here at Oklahoma Christian, and I'm going to turn this over to John DeSteiger, our Chancellor.
Well, good morning. I also want to thank you for being here. I'm going to make several introductions a little bit later, but I know that we don't want to stand between you and your salad, so we're going to let that happen very quickly. A really special friend of all of ours, I'm going to ask to step up and lead our prayer, and he might have some comments that he wants to share as well. You all know Senator James Lankford as well as I do, I think, and you know how blessed the state of Oklahoma is. He's a great leader. He's a great man. I think a lot of us were probably wishing that he would have been on the debate stage the other night. But maybe that's sometime in the future as well. We're thrilled that Cindy, maybe that's not a wish that we ought to offer to either of them, yeah. Okay, one man's treasure is another man's trash. But we're also thrilled, Cindy, that you're here with us. What a great team you all are. You've been very special to all of us for so long. 5 years ago, a group of Oklahoma Christian folks went to Washington, D.C. The senator was good enough to host a Q&A for us for an hour. We learned at the very end of that Q&A, as Cindy came into the room, that it was their wedding anniversary. So we got to celebrate their wedding anniversary, them and their 50 closest friends. That's right. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Senator James Lankford.
So just for the record on that, yes, it was our wedding anniversary, but we were already voting anyway, and Cindy was in town during that time period, so we could actually be together for our wedding anniversary because I'm going to be there. So not that I wouldn't want to be with you during my wedding anniversary, of course. I'm gonna read a quick passage to us and pray over our meal. I'll save my longer words for when we're all sitting out in the sun later and try to make it really long and painful. It'll be brief out there as well. But let me just read this passage to you that just reminds me of what we're remembering of two moments. One of them this past week, obviously, and as we go back and reflect on it, from Psalm 46, it just says, God is our refuge and our strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear, though the earth give way, and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam, and the mountains quake with their surging, because there is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy place where the Most High dwells. God is within her. She will not fall. And in moments as a nation that we thought, what is going on? We now look back on it and remember God is our refuge and strength. And though the mountain falls in the heart of the sea, there's a river that's still there. So let's pray for our meal and our time together. Father, thank you for the way that you provide for us as we remember days of unbelievable pain and tragedy that we have not forgotten, and we are grateful you have not either. As we look back on those moments, we see your hand even in all the pain, and we see what you have done in so many lives and families. So God, help us to be able to communicate your faithfulness and your presence, that truth, to students who don't remember either of these events. That as they walk past these trees and they remember these moments, they would see evidence of your faithfulness, even in times of trouble. God, help us to be able to tell the story of your faithfulness in the days ahead. Use even this time in a way that only you can. Thanks for how you provide for our nation and for our families and for us as individuals, even in this meal. We just want to tell you we're grateful to you and that we look to you. In the name of Jesus, I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Senator. Okay, please enjoy your meal. I'm going to go ahead and make some introductions, but I want you to eat now because time really is of the essence in some ways. Senator, thank you for that prayer and that blessing. About probably 5 years ago, Senator Lankford came and spoke in chapel And it was really great. Before we walked in, he told me that he had a real Church of Christ tie that I had not realized. His grandmother was raised as a member of the Church of Christ. She married a Baptist, went to Baptist church for the rest of her life, but anytime she was asked what religion she was, she would always say Church of Christ. So I was grateful to hear that. Well, we have special guests, and I want to call several of you all just so we can wave and thank you for being here. We have some Oklahoma City MURA survivors with us this morning. Dot Hill, Susan Walton, Janet Beck, Joanne, and Gary Hutchison. Thank you all. Let's give them a round of applause. You all are always welcome on our campus. We love and appreciate you all very, very much. We also have some special New York friends on the other end of the room, not intentionally. Ron and Judy Vega, Tom Canavan, and Mike Kenny. Let's thank them for being here. Thank you all. You're going to hear more from Ron also under the sun a little bit when we're out at the 1 o'clock dedication. We've got some great public servants that are here in the room with us. I'm going to have a little bit more full introduction a little later for some panel members that we have. But former Governor Frank Keating and his wife, former First Lady Kathy Keating, are here with us. Let's thank them. Kerry Watkins, President and CEO of the National Memorial here in Oklahoma City. The fine mayor of Edmond, Oklahoma, Darrell Davis, the Honorable Darrell Davis. Susan Winchester, Secretary of Licensing and Regulation here in the state. Susan, thank you. You're going to hear more from Susan also. Susan's on our panel and has a really special direct tie to the MURA disaster as well. Senator Adam Pugh is over here to my right. Senator, thank you for being here. State Representative and I will say OC alum Mike Osborne is here at this table. Thank you. Okay, just a few more, and then I'll let you eat in peace for about 10 minutes before I bring the panel up. So panelists, eat fast, please. We have some very special trustees at this university, and we're really thrilled when they are with us. They support us in so many ways. Jeff Bonney, who is not yet taking a bite because he knows I'm about to call his name. Jeff and Natalie Bonney back at this table. Thank you, Jeff. Yep. Another current trustee, Alfred Branch and his wife Judy up here. Thank you all for being here. Former trustee Richard Lawson and his wife Pat. Thank you all a ton. Former trustee Todd Dobson is sitting right in the middle of the room as well. Todd. Okay, let's see. 5 more introductions I want to make. Oklahoma Christian is really blessed in this era by the leadership of the university, and we're grateful that we have a president who has been in the fight before and has stepped back in. So let's thank President Ken Jones and his wife Susie for joining us. And you'll notice the immediate upgrade from black and white photos to a color photo. So that's a wonderful thing. There are 2 very special connectors that have made a lot of this memorial happen by their work and their effort. And that really, ladies and gentlemen, is Ricky Lawson sitting over here to the left and Brad Robinson over here to the right. So let's thank them. And you'll hear more about those individuals a little bit later as well. I'm now going to join my wife, Darla. Thank you for coming to lunch with me, Darla. And I'll be back up in a couple minutes with the panel. Okay, friends, I'm going to interrupt, and I want to take us to our panel discussion. You all please continue to eat. These are 4 very special people that we have. And by the way, there's somebody else I intended to introduce and I did not. She works for the senator and does just a great job. Estela Hernandez. She is the senator's right-hand person, always present. She and I were at the same event yesterday. So let's welcome Estela as well. Well, and the reality is, I could probably introduce everybody in here because of special stories that each of you all have. These 4 have really special stories about a tragic time, but a very hopeful time in the history of our state. I want to ask each of these individuals a few questions, but let me tell you a little bit about them, although you know them well. Frank Keating served as governor. He's been only one of 5 Oklahoma governors who has served 2 terms. It's a pretty unique thing. He was born out of state, but he got to Tulsa within 6 months of birth. As fast as he could get to Tulsa, he returned to the state and has served in a variety of ways in all sorts of public service. Frank became governor of the state of Oklahoma 3 months prior to the Murrah bombing. There wasn't a lot of time to get ready for something like that. His wife, Kathy, is a leader in her own right in a variety of ways. Now, she is a Tulsa young lady, so we're proud to have an Oklahoman like that. Kathy has led in a variety of things, and you're going to hear during this panel discussion about something in particular that she suggested and ran with that was just a really, really significant thing in the time that we were recovering and trying to heal from the disaster that befell us back then. Susan Winchester. Susan has a real personal story to tell. Her sister was in the Murrah building and lost her life. Susan has been a public servant. In fact, she went into the House of Representatives at the state 3 years following the Murrah bombing. She was the first woman ever to become the Speaker Pro Tem of the House. And she now serves Governor Stitt and our state as the Secretary of Licensing and Regulation. She also serves higher education. She's on the Russo Board, the Regional University System of Oklahoma. And then Carrie Watkins. Carrie, wow. Oh, well, I didn't mention that Susan is a Chickasha girl, and Carrie is a Cleveland, Oklahoma girl. So we have 3 genuine Oklahomans and one that came to the party a little bit later, but is an Oklahoman through and through. Carrie, wow, she leads one of the treasures of the state of Oklahoma. The National Memorial and Museum is a remarkable place. It was remarkable from day one, but the renovations and the upgrades, just amazing. And Carrie is a great leader. Carrie was the first employee of that entity when it formed several years after the bombing. So, very special people on this panel. I want to pose a question to all of you to start with. April 19th, 1995, that morning, what were you doing? Where were you when word first came to you that some sort of an explosion, a disaster had occurred in the federal building in Oklahoma City? Anyone? Susan?
I will. I was working at Leadership Oklahoma in the McAlpine Center, which was 5 blocks to the south of the Murrah building. And when the explosion started, I have to admit my age. I grew up during the era of sonic booms. I thought I was hearing a sonic boom. And I've told people laughingly, I said I thought some jet jockey was flying into Tinker and showing off for his mom. But we found out very, very quickly that it was obviously not a sonic boom. Sitting in my office, no windows, everything fell off the shelves, lots of dirt, lots of dust. Went out to see what was going on. we had no television communication at that particular time. We had a television that we used for training, which we kept trying to get on the local radio, local stations, trying to find out what was happening. The initial response was it was a gas explosion, a gas line. So I don't know how long you want me to talk, get everyone else's. I can go on and on about what happened afterward, but other experiences as well.
For me, I was finishing it was in my last semester of my MBA, and I was heading out to class. I watched my garden doors kind of go out and come back in. And so I came back in and flipped on the news, and within a few minutes I saw the helicopter shot that Channel 9 had in the air and began to learn the story.
I was in Tulsa. John mentioned that this was just 3 months after Frank had been sworn into office. And he had this wise idea that we were going to put our house on the market, and it sold immediately, and we had less than a month to get out. The movers had arrived that morning, April 19th. I'd been up all night long, packing and putting Post-it notes on, and the phone rang about 9:20, and I'd gotten a phone call from a friend of mine saying, "Are you watching the TV?" And of course I wasn't, so I turned it on and couldn't get in contact with Frank. And you know, all of a sudden things were kind of in motion. I walked out the door at 10:30, stopped at Philbrook to give a speech, and I asked everybody to pray. That's all I did, is I said, please pray for the people in that building. And then I got on the road and went to Oklahoma City, and everything else is history.
Well, the mayor's prayer breakfast, Ron Norick's prayer breakfast, was that morning, and here I am, the Catholic new governor, and I wonder how these people prayed. But in any event, hopefully not in Latin, but in any event. So we finished the prayer breakfast. It was a big crowd downtown, very near the Murrah building, and I went back to the governor's residence to watch the news and listen and prepare for the day. And it was at that point that someone came in and said, we need to switch channels. I think it was Channel 9 that was the first on site. So we need to switch channels and watch what's happening. When I first had, and in the governor's residence, all bulletproof glass, so you could feel the concussion, percussion, whatever the exact technical term is. And
You
I
mean
thought,
the Capitol.
pardon me?
You mean the Capitol.
Yeah, the Capitol.
Yeah.
The governor's residence. I mean, the governor's office. Excuse me, you can tell who's in charge of our family. But anyway,
I don't want to give any
No,
secrets
thank you,
away,
ma'am.
but there isn't any bulletproof glass at the mansion.
that is probably true. But anyway, so somebody said, we think that's a natural gas explosion. And I said, well, Tinker Air Force Base is not too far away. It could have been, a crash involving one of the aircraft, or an explosive, an explosion of ammunition or the like. And then when I heard the natural gas explosion, I said, that's much too big for that. I mean, because it really, as I said, the percussion just was intense against the side of the building. And then that horrific day that all of us wish had never happened, we went from there.
Well, thank you all for those responses. Governor, I want to ask you specifically. So pretty quickly, the eyes of the world turned on Oklahoma, and the focus was all on us. And I will say on behalf of everyone who remembers that time, we could not have had a better governor and first lady of the state of Oklahoma. The way you comported yourselves, the way you led, the sympathy, it was just impressive for all of us. In the aftermath, the hours and the days and the weeks following April the 19th, as you were in the midst of nothing you could have trained or prepared for, what surprised you or didn't surprise you?
Well, I'm going to have to ask my friend Mike Osborne, who was right with us as an intimate part of our circle, to assist with that one. But I was surprised that a response on the part of the state, because I didn't know Ron Norick, I didn't know the police chief, the fire chief. Now, I had appointed a National Guard commander who already was a 2-star general and was first rate. And so I knew that would be taken care of. But put yourself in a position like that when you're brand new and you really don't know the people around you who can help you or, quite truthfully, harm you. You know, they are not particularly gifted about responding to a horrific natural or man-made tragedy. But it all began to flow where people immediately knew what their function was. What does a governor do? I knew the National Guard. I knew, obviously, the people at the state level that would respond. But who would respond with us? I mean, what other fire departments, what other police departments, what other assistance could be coming our way from other cities and states? The FEMA Urban Search and Rescue Teams, I mean, I had heard of them, but heavens, I had no knowledge whatsoever. But the most important thing I did was surround myself with very good people, a lot more talented, more experienced, and smarter than I. And the tragic news obviously had to be responded to. And I suspected the next morning, by the way, John, that PTSD was rampant throughout the site of the tragedy because Kathy and I went down to just before dawn, and here up the street came a firefighter with his jacket over his shoulder, and I could tell it was not the Oklahoma City Fire Department's uniform. And they had, as all of us remember, searchlights up on the building, but it was probably 6 in the morning. And I thought, well, now, what do I do? And spontaneously, you know, political people, I stepped into the street and I said, thank you for being here. So the guy was coming up the street. And I thought he, you know, would carry on a conversation or just look the other way, but he stopped and he said, who are you? And that's always, if you're a Republican in those days, it was basically, who are you? There he said, who are you? And I said, I'm the governor of Oklahoma. And you would think, handshake, thank you, sir, and walk on. No, he took his finger and hit me in the chest. And he said, well, then you find out who did this, because the only thing I pulled from that rubble were a child's finger and an American flag. And he stormed on up the street. True story. And I thought, uh-oh. You know, there are a lot of shattered people seeing what they saw up front and personal in that building.
Wow. Kathy, I want to step over to you because you were at the governor's side. Very quickly, you identified an idea and then you carried it through to fruition, and that was the International Prayer Service. Tell us about that.
But, you know, if you're elected, you have a role to play. If you're married, Cindy, you probably can understand this. If you're not elected, you have to figure out how you can help, because you're just like everybody else. And so I had been with Frank after I got to Oklahoma City at the site, and while he was doing all the press and meeting with everybody until about probably 6 or 7. And then he stayed down there, and I went back to the mansion because I had no other role to play. And about 8:15, a friend of mine called, and she said, what are you doing? And I said, I'm trying to figure out how I can help Oklahoma. If you remember, because I was on the phone on the turnpike calling every time somebody on the radio said, we need people for blood. I'd get on the phone and call people, and then they'd say, don't send anybody else. We have too many people, or we need water. And I'd get on the phone and start making phone calls, and to people I didn't know, and everybody graciously took my phone call. They said, don't send any more water. We don't have any place to put it, because that was the response of Oklahomans. So trying to figure out how I could be of help in helping Oklahoma get back up off their knees and on their feet. A friend of mine said, what are you going to do? And I said, I don't know. And she said, Kathy, if this were a friend of yours, not a great big building, what would you do? And I said, I'd put on a prayer service. And the prayer service was born. And she said, you want me to help you get together some people to come over? And so the 2 people who were part of the prayer service for the inaugural came over. Somebody from Sam came over from Southwestern Bell. Debbie Snodgrass and myself came, and we started planning the prayer service. I called Laura Bush at 10:30 at night, woke her up. The security didn't want to wake her up. She goes to bed really early. And I had met Billy Graham with her the month before at a First Ladies meeting, and I said, would you give me Billy Graham's number? And she said, it's 10:30 at night. It's 11:30. He'll be asleep. You woke me up. I'll call you in the morning. So I called. The next morning, I called his office and was told immediately that he could not come because he'd been sick all week. And I said, well, if you'd be sure and let him know, I'm going to mention that we invited him. And she said, oh, wait a minute. Wait just a minute. Let me just run this by him first. And he, as I mentioned, had been sick, and he said, yes, I'll be there. And quite truthfully, I really think that made a statement to the rest of the world that the world was with us in prayer. And they were. And he came with Ruth and Franklin and went down to the site, and everybody just came forward. The Philharmonic said yes, and Canterbury Choir said yes. We invited the Ambassador Choir, and they turned us down because they were doing a revival. And it was non-denominational. We had a Jewish rabbi, we had a Catholic priest speak, somebody from the non-denominational Christian church, a Baptist minister, and it was all about us coming together and really praying for everybody's recovery. We learned that morning, right before the prayer service, that we were going to go from rescue to recovery. At that point, there were no more live bodies in the building. And I knew that going into the prayer service and was greatly saddened by that. But it was really about healing and helping us lift up these families and these victims of the bombing in prayer, and actually the Oklahoma community and the world. And the next morning, we went down to the prayer to the site, and we were doing interviews, and the CNN stopped me, and they had done the feed at the fairgrounds and to all the other news stations. And he said, have you heard the news? And I said, what news? He said, it was the most widely watched programming in the history of television worldwide. Wow. And so the world was with us. And if you asked me what surprised me most, is I thought the Oklahoma City community would be with us. I hope the state of Oklahoma would be with us, because there is that rivalry between Oklahoma City and the rest of the state, being the capital city, as it is in every state in America. But I didn't really think the world would be with us, and the world was with us.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Thanks, Kathy. Kathy, what day was the prayer service?
The bombing was on Wednesday. The prayer service was on Sunday.
Okay.
And we wanted to have it on Saturday, but there was a horse show going on. And we had to clean out all the manure.
That's real life politics there. Wow. Okay, thank you. Susan, boy, our hearts go out for you.
Thank you.
Losing a sister. Tell us about Peggy.
I know you said that might come up, and you're trying to think of someone. First of all, let me add a little bit. My sister was working downtown in Oklahoma City. I didn't know where. I didn't know she was in the Murrah building. Mm-hmm. She had just gone to work for the U.S. Department of Ag. So before we were told we needed to leave Oklahoma City, I picked up the phone, called, checked on her. The call went through. No one answered. So I picked up the phone and called some other people. They said, no, she's not in Oklahoma City today. She's doing a presentation at OSU. She will be on the road. She's probably fine. We'll wait. We'll hear from her pretty soon. Knowing my sister in a government truck, had she known what was going on, no radios at that particular time, but had she known at all what was going on, she would have turned around and come home to help everybody. That's just who she was and what she did. They told us to leave Oklahoma City and go home. I went home and started watching what was going on, bringing family together. If you've watched any of the video, you see the fireman leading someone down a ladder. That's Brian Espy. He was head of the U.S. Department of Ag. So we kept thinking from that point forward, if Brian was okay, then Peggy was okay. And we might not have heard from her, but surely she was okay. By noon, we had not heard from her, but we did find out she didn't make it to Stillwater. At that point, the long wait starts when you know that you're going to get a call at any point in time. She's fine, she's okay, relieved that everything is the way you want it to be. By 5 o'clock, they said, if you know of someone that is missing and they haven't contacted you, please call and let us know, give us a description. If you've ever had to do that, that's the most heartbreaking thing you can think of. And I was trying to tell them about my sister, and they want to know what she looks like. And I go, finally, she's 5'9", has brown hair, hazel eyes, and I go, she looks just like me. Which, once upon a time, I did have hazel. I did have brown. But it's very, very hard, to put that out there because, in summary, my sister was one of them, to me, and always will be, very, very unique. And that stops in time. So those are your memories. Wicked, wicked sense of humor. And you always wanted to be on the listening, not the receiving side. She was incredibly bright, and I say that with pure jealousy, nothing else. She had a photographic mind. She could read something, immediately give it back to you. We hated anyone that had to be in the same classroom with her taking a test. She just knew the material. She didn't have to study. You'd been up all night the night before. I was extremely jealous of her. But probably most of all, she was a wonderful, wonderful mom. She has 3 beautiful little girls, and I'll probably choke up here. She has 3 little girls that have turned out to be spectacular, spectacular young women. And I do have to say, she loved horses, so she would have appreciated the fact that you let the horse show go on and then cleaned up the mess. So, my regret is for the girls, most particularly, because she had so much to offer, so much guidance, and there's so many things that she's missed out on. We've had graduations from school all the way through. Her oldest daughter is a veterinarian, like she was, vet school. Second daughter is Commissioner of Ag, head of the Department of Ag for the state of Oklahoma. Peggy's first job was with the Department of Ag. And then we have Chelsea, who is the free spirit that Peggy was on her other side. I call Rosalind, what's going on? I'm in St. Louis at some meeting doing something. I call Blaine, I'm in DC working on something. You call Chelsea, I'm taking a mixology class, learning how to do, just 3 very, very different personalities, but wonderful, wonderful girls. And my heart just breaks that she didn't get to see how they turned out, because they are just amazing, just awesome young women. And I think they had the basis, a very strong, not for long, but a very, very strong basis to grow on.
Thanks, Susan. Carrie, wow, you have been involved in different kinds of recovery from this for decades now. We're coming up on 30 years next spring. The National Memorial Museum here in Oklahoma City is, it's a treasure. What do you see for the future of how the memorial and museum is, where is it going? How can it continue to help us heal and recover and keep memories alive?
Great question. First of all, I'll say those 3 girls benefited from an incredible aunt that helped finish raising them. And so I would say that's so much part of the story of survivors who are here and family members. Those are the stakeholders. That is their story. And it is because other things happen or things around the world happen, it doesn't change their story. Hopefully they can help and lend a hand, or people can come here to learn. I think that's one way we go on, is that we continue to share our lessons learned and share the grace that was, and so much help that was given to us. We had the folks from Oslo here last week. Uvalde is here next week. I mean, we have been so able to be a city on a hill for so many people around the world, and that is by sharing their stories or sharing. Think about the leadership of the Keatings and how young they really were, and I'm always amazed at this. I mean, mid-40s or 50 years old, whatever they were, that's young to go carry a state through a time of tragedy. So those kinds of lessons are incredible for us to be able to share with people as they go through this, because not everybody has been blessed by the leadership that we had, and the politics where the politicians could literally be there and help, but not strong arm you like I've seen in so many other places. They just said, we're here to help. And they were. Every time we needed something, they were there. And those are kind of lessons that when you say to an elected official who's here from Uvalde, we're like, be there, but don't dictate it. Let the families and survivors drive the train of how they want to be remembered, or make sure you include their stories. And that's not as easy. I mean, we built this place, I will say, without social media and without a camera in every meeting, which, today that's not the case in events, but we had some tough meetings. We had some hard things about survivors versus family members and the jealousy and the hardness. They worked through that in just a matter of days. But those are important lessons to remember and to be honest about and to share when you're sitting down with the community going through a crisis. And then I think as far as the museum goes, we have to figure out and continue to tell the story factually. These phones that we all carry that are cameras and filing cabinets and news documents sometimes don't always tell you the truth. And I know that might be a shock to you, but there is a conspiracy side out there that people look at. And so when you're bringing a busload of kids in from Western Oklahoma or Edmond or anywhere else, they can be on their phone looking to see what the story is. It may not be the same story they learn in the museum. The story we tell in the museum is factually checked, was part of the not one, but 2 federal trials and then a state trial. And so we know those facts have been vetted. But what you see on what you read on your phone may not have been vetted. And so we have to figure out how to continue to teach that story and make sure people know the facts. And I think that's going to be harder and harder with AI. It's a blessing and a curse, and we got to figure that out. We're doing an exhibit right now, how security has changed over the last 30 years, and we're using AI in that just because we want to be able to reach the kids where they are. But the first 2 or 3 questions you ask it, you're like, not quite the truth. And so you have to, AI works. What you put in is what comes out, and so we have to devote time to that, to our entire story, to make sure the facts are in there, so that when people ask it, it comes out. And so there's a lot of technology challenges we have in the next, I'd say, decade, just to stay on top of the story, and then just to make sure we don't forget where we came from. I mean, it is a story about the people and and how we came together. If there's ever a time in this country people need to know that story, it is now. And it is where people, red, yellow, black, and white, red and blue politics, I mean, we just figured it out. Tulsa, Oklahoma City, it didn't matter. Every state needs a couple great cities. Every state needs several great universities. And we need people who will work together. And politics aside, in times of crisis, and really we should be able to, I gave this pep talk to my 21 and 23-year-old last night. You both have a vote. You don't have to convince each other to vote your way. Just know what you're voting for and why. That's a different matter. But when you're coming together in a time of crisis, just be Americans. We had an event at the museum a couple of weeks ago, and I heard a state representative say, I'm not an R and a D, I'm an O, I'm an Oklahoman. And I have quoted her several times on that, because that's what we saw in 1995. We've seen it many times since. But there are times when people can get away from it, and we're like, oh no, come back here, we're all in this together. And even if we disagree, which is one of our bigger projects, we ought to be able to sit down and have a discussion, and I should understand where you're coming from, and you should be willing to listen to where I'm coming from. Had we been able to do that in 1995, maybe this would have never happened. Maybe McVeigh's Army officers, who have incredible regret, and I've met all of them, maybe they could have worked with him and brought him along. But that is now our responsibility, is to be bringing people along, not to turf wars, not to go back in our corners, but to bring people together.
Wow, thank you, Carrie.
Sorry for that sermon, but. No,
that's, preach on. Ladies and gentlemen, 4 really strong and special public servants. Thank you all. That's good. Thank you all. All right. Yeah. Wow, that was great. I have one other item I want to share, and then Christine, I think I turn it over to you to close. Again, panelists, thank you. Thank you for being with us and your time with us as well. You're going to step out here at the last possible minute to go to the 1 o'clock and stand outside where it's hot. There's a south entrance where you will be, and we'll walk up. We'll have some seats for you. Several of us will be speaking. I want to encourage us all to go short. There will be water out there as well. But on the north side, there is also an entrance that we're not really going to be at. That's where the camera is going to be set up. People won't see that. There is a plaque there, and it's kind of a special plaque, and I want to announce what it says here to this group. Survivor Tree Memorial Plaza, a bond of hope and healing. Within this special place of remembrance, at the heart of Oklahoma Christian University, stands a powerful symbol of resilience and hope. Two extraordinary trees planted side by side, one a descendant of the Oklahoma City National Memorial's survivor tree, and the other a cutting from the World Trade Center's defiant survivor. OC is honored to be the only site outside New York City to host these living memorials next to one another. In the wake of the 9/11 tragedy, profound relationships formed among the survivors of Oklahoma City and of New York City. What began as offers of comfort grew into lasting bonds, marked by annual gatherings on the universities of both attacks. These reunions, held in Oklahoma City and often at Oklahoma Christian University on April 19 and in New York City on September 11, deepened the shared experience of loss and perseverance. The survivor trees on OC's campus stand as a powerful symbol of these extraordinary connections. One such enduring bond is the friendship between Brad Robison of Oklahoma and Ron Vega of New York. United by the shared experiences of their respective cities' tragedies and a common purpose to support survivors, their connection has deepened over the years. Robison, known as Pops here at OC, is a dedicated advocate. He's been instrumental in the lives of many through his involvement with OC, the University Social Service Club, Delta Gamma Sigma, the Oklahoma City National Memorial and Museum, and survivor support groups. His tireless efforts were essential to the creation of this memorial. This memorial would also not be here without Ron. Ron Vega worked in the 9/11 recovery efforts at Ground Zero and was the Senior Director of Design for the National September 11 Memorial. Together with his wife Judy and other survivors and emergency responders from 9/11, they drove a sapling grown from the 9/11 survivor tree in New York City to Oklahoma City to be planted here on the OC campus, alongside our survivor tree from the Oklahoma City National Memorial and Museum. Robison and Vega, Brad and Ron, have consistently supported each other and survivors by making trips to commemorate the anniversaries of these tragedies. Their remarkable bond is just one testament to the enduring connections forged among those impacted by 9/11 and the Oklahoma City bombing tragedies, representing the unity between the two cities and the unwavering hope for healing and fortitude. Dedicated September 13, 2024. Ladies and gentlemen, Brad Robison and Ron Vega.
Thankful that everyone's here today. I want to welcome you to Oklahoma Christian. My name is Christine Meredith, and I serve as the Chief Advancement Officer here. And I am thrilled for everyone who's here today, and I'm very excited about this Survivor Tree Plaza that we're dedicating this afternoon. I am going to introduce to you our Chancellor, Dr. John DeSteiger. He will come up and make some introductions for the people who will be part of our program.
Christine, thank you. I also want to welcome you to Oklahoma Christian University. This is a special campus, and this place on our campus I think is most special of all. We're honored by your presence this afternoon as we dedicate our Survivor Tree Memorial Plaza. We're especially honored to have several Oklahoma City MURA survivors here with us. Please welcome these special friends: Dot Hill, Susan Walton, Janet Beck, Joanne, and Gary Hutchison. Let's give them a round of applause. Likewise, what an honor to have our dear friends from New York. men and women intimately connected to the 9/11 attack on the World Trade Center and to the recovery efforts following 9/11 and to the creation of the 9/11 National Memorial on the former site of the World Trade Center. Please welcome Ron and Judy Vega, Tom Canavan, and Mike Kenny. And we also have some of the nation's best current and former public servants. Let me mention their names, and then we can clap for them all together. Ladies and gentlemen, U.S. Senator James Lankford and his wife Cindy, former Governor and First Lady Frank and Kathy Keating, Oklahoma City Mayor David Holt, Edmond Mayor Darrell Davis, Oklahoma Secretary of Licensing and Regulation Susan Winchester, President and CEO of the Oklahoma City National Memorial and Museum Kerry Watkins, and State Representative and Oklahoma Christian alum Mike Osborne. Let's all thank them for being here. Well, in 2012, Oklahoma Christian received and planted 2 small trees. These happen to be the trees that now, in a blessed way, are providing shade to most of the folks in the audience today. The first tree was a seedling of the tree that lived, the inspirational American elm that is Oklahoma's survivor tree, the tree that was at ground zero of the 1995 Murrah Federal Building bombing. And this is that American elm right here. But also the second tree, it was a cutting of the Callery pear tree that survived the destruction of the World Trade Center on September 11, 2001. Our small tree was driven halfway across the country in a rented minivan from New York City, cradled by Judy Vega and other intrepid road trippers. And here is that survivor tree right there. How did Oklahoma Christian get these special survivor trees? Survivor trees that outside of New York City stand side by side only right here. OC received them because of relationships. Friendships that were forged over years by people who shared terrible experiences and ordeals, but also shared irrepressible hope for healing and the future. These 2 trees have thrived here for 12 years, thanks to the loving care of our expert horticulturalist, Jared Dean. Jared knows that we don't want to lose any trees on campus, but these 2 are in a category all their own. No pressure, Jared. But now, thanks to our supporters, to our donors, and to our friends, the Survivor Tree Memorial Plaza is a worthy, attention-focusing home for these trees. This is a place of beauty, of remembrance, and of hope. In every sense of the phrase, this is holy ground. It's a place that educates and helps us to remember. And that's for all of us. Those who remember where they were and what they were doing on the mornings of April 19th, 1995 and September 11th, 2001. And for those who weren't even born on either of these days. Our program will not be long, especially because of the sun, but we have some very special folks who will celebrate this dedication with us. Here's the order. First, the former Oklahoma governor and Mrs. Keating, Frank and Kathy Keating, unquestionably the right leaders for our state 29 years ago when the eyes of the world turned to us because of tragedy, and then because of resilience, and then because of healing. Following the governor and former First Lady, Oklahoma's senior U.S. Senator, the Honorable James Lankford, will give some comments. Then, Oklahoma City Mayor David Holt, the mayor of the United States' 20th largest and one of its fastest growing cities, and home in 4 years to competitions in the Summer Olympics. As an aside, we live in a really remarkable state where we can see our leaders like these 4 in positions of power and influence. We see them on TV, and yet we know them as people of character and as personal friends. What a blessing that is for all of us. Next to speak is Ron Vega, our New York brother who worked in recovery efforts and then became senior project designer at the National September 11 Memorial and Museum on the former site of the World Trade Center. After Ron, OC trustee, former OC president, and dear friend Alfred Branch will offer a dedicatory prayer. And then closing thank yous and comments from Christine Meredith, OC's Chief Advancement Officer. Again, thank you for being with us at this special place, at this special time, on this special day. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome former Governor and First Lady Frank and Kathy Keating.
This really is the nave of a cathedral. It's a place that brings back horrific memories, but also memories of brotherhood and sisterhood, caring, giving, sharing, loving, a real spiritual place. I know we had a group of New Yorkers who came to help us under the command of Ray Downey, one of the deputy chiefs of the New York Fire Department. Ray was killed on 9/11. Ray, here with those wonderful brothers and sisters from New York, helped us through our darkest hour. I gave Ray a rosary which he put over his head, and he said to me, well, this is really neat. And I said, Ray, are you a Catholic? And he said, is the Pope Catholic? And obviously he is. But his wife told me later, after 9/11, that Ray was wearing that rosary when he was killed on 9/11. That interface between all of us hasn't changed. And here we have the sisters behind us, our own survivor tree child, their own survivor tree child. And it's this place at Oklahoma Christian that brings them together, us together, so we can pray together, love together, and thank God that we are all here remembering and not forgetting the importance of us to care for others.
I want to thank Oklahoma Christian for coming up with this brilliant idea, this Remembrance Plaza with the two survivor trees that, as Frank just said, bring us together. And how appropriate it is that it's on the campus of Oklahoma Christian, because from the point at April 19th, 1995 until today, it has been the faith, hope, and love that has gotten us up off our knees and on our feet and helped us all go forward. So thank you, Oklahoma Christian, for this very, very special memorial.
Thank you, Keatings. Ladies and gentlemen, U.S. Senator James Lankford.
It's a special place, but it's interesting just to be able to watch, even during this ceremony, to be able to see students walking across campus, and for all of us that will never ever forget those days, to remember they weren't born that day. Either of the days we're talking about, in April 19th, 1995 or in 2001. So it brings back a sense that as you walk across this plaza at Oklahoma Christian for a very long time, it'll be symbolic in a way that I keep reflecting on. And it's from Joshua chapter 4. In Joshua chapter 4, Joshua takes 12 stones and he takes them out of the middle of the Jordan River and he sets them up. And then he says, when your children ask their fathers in time to come, what do these stones mean? Then you will tell your children how Israel passed over the Jordan on dry ground, so that the people of the earth may know that the hand of the Lord is mighty, and you may fear the Lord your God forever. Israel set a principle to say, set up places so that when the future generations come through, they won't forget the story. This is now one of those places that as students walk across campus, they'll pause, they'll read the story, they'll have an opportunity to be able to reflect on something they never personally experienced. But for generations to come, they'll be able to reflect on the faithfulness and goodness of God, who we are as a nation, and who we will continue to be able to become in God's help. So this is a terrific idea to be able to gather in a place like this, to be able to have trees like that set up for the world to be able to see, and for the next generation to never forget what these trees mean in the days ahead. God bless y'all.
Thank you, Senator Lankford. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Honorable Mayor of Oklahoma City, David Holt.
Well, thank you, Chancellor. I just can't thank OC enough for doing this. It is such an important reminder of the linkages that we share with people all around the world and the commonality that we have. And this was alluded to by the governor, and it's so vitally important. It may make sense, of course, for OC to have a survivor tree from downtown Oklahoma City. Obviously, that was something very closely experienced by everyone here in the community. But it may seem a stretch if you're not thinking about this the right way to think, why would they have a survivor tree all the way from New York City? But the reality is, these are all shared experiences. We all feel pain in these moments. Some of this is very deeply personal to people in this audience, but all of us as humans grieved on these days. And these days are such important reminders to stand against terrorism, to stand against division, to stand against political violence. And this plaza does all of those things. And that's so important for a place of higher learning to lay that marker down and to say that when you come onto this campus, you're a part of a human experience that stretches really not just all the way to New York and Washington, D.C., but all around the globe. I've had dinner in a neighborhood just to the north of this campus at the home of an Afghan refugee who's living here now in this community because of what happened 20 plus years ago. So these experiences tie us all together, and we have to find common ground, and we have to use places like this to do that. So I'm just infinitely grateful to OC. And by the way, this is not a standalone project. This university, time and again, has tried to find those common experiences, has tried to make sure that its students and its community are aware of events like this, are aware of the civil rights movement, are aware of injustice around the world, and are inspiring their students to bring us together and not pull us apart. And I'm so grateful for that as a mayor and as a resident in this community. So I think this is an absolutely wonderful thing. And my personal connection is I'm probably one of the, I would say, just a few hundred Oklahomans who were in Oklahoma City on April 19th, 1995, and were in Washington or New York on September 11th, 2001. I don't have the same personal experience that so many others unfortunately do, but I certainly saw the smoke rise in both places. And I, as mayor, always feel that people in Oklahoma City have to uniquely stand against future events like these. And it takes us remembering, it takes us building places like this, it takes us talking about it and learning from it. So thank you to OC, thank you to the leadership here for doing this, and thank you all for coming out today. God bless.
Thank you, Mayor Holt, very much. Now I'd like to welcome to the podium a good friend, a man that we really are honored that he is with us as well. From New York, please welcome Ron Vega.
I just want to adjust this mic because I feel bad for all the height-challenged people that went before me. I fit anywhere, they don't always fit everywhere. Hey, do you guys even know how special today is? Do you even have any idea what a miracle this is? All the twists and turns, all the sadness and joy over these many years to make this one place where these two trees are a reality. I think of it all the time. I don't understand it. It can only be the hand of God. It can only be a miracle because there's no reason for me to be here. There's no reason for this tree to be here other than guidance from above. In 2001, when the towers went down and our city agency, the Department of Design for New York City, was entrusted with the management of the entire recovery effort, I had no idea that my part in it would be so important. But it was a moment where I met Michael Kenny, my brother from another mother, my best friend with 3 first names, Michael Patrick Kenny. He's been my inspiration so many years now, and Tom Canavan, who's over here, the one of only 20 people that walked out from under that rubble that horrible day. My wife, Judy, who over 46 years ago took pity on me and married me. And our friend who passed away, sadly, Charlie Kazarowski, who was the other crazy person that jumped in a rented van to come out here and bring this tree to you guys. The story behind getting the tree, well, during the recovery effort, actually, Parks Department came to this Ground Zero site and looked at all the trees, and they said, there's nothing here salvageable, no tree here survived. And they walked away and they labeled all the trees and they said, no good, not worth the time trying to save. And then there was this one tree between buildings 4 and 5 in a little planter box, and we came upon it, and actually in early October, it pushed out a branch with leaves on it. So look at this. This tree wants to live. It's burned, it's buried, it's laying on its side, all its roots are exposed, but it wants to live. And so what's going on with this tree? We investigated, and the Parks Department considered it mortally wounded, and they wouldn't take it up. They wouldn't even spend the time. But we, as DDCers, we said, you know what? We're going to make you take this tree. You're going to save this tree, because this tree is the last living thing coming out of this hole. And we begged and we pleaded and we called in favors, and sure enough, one cold, dark night, October 31st, Halloween 2001, we placed the tree in a ball and we laid it down the back of a flatbed truck, and off it went into the night, and we thought never to be seen again. So 2002, when the recovery effort ended, Mike and I, we were desperate for help. We had swallowed all the sorrow of that site, and we had inhaled all the toxic materials from that site, and we needed help, and we knew we were sick, and we knew our bodies and mind needed some help. And so we went all over the place. We tried Ayurvedic, Western, Eastern medicine. We tried Scientology. We tried massage. We tried therapy. And by some, I don't even know, we walked into a space called September Space, and they decided to have or start an exchange program with Oklahoma City. And again, they took pity on us and they let us come along. And so we took a flight out here, and, you know, this is like another planet to us. Make no mistake, we knew what took place here. We knew the parallel between the horror here and the horror in New York. And quite frankly, we needed to see and learn from you. We needed to know, how do you survive? How do you go on after this? It's inexplicable how bad it was. But here you were in Oklahoma. You were going forward. You were living going on with your lives. And we met so many people here. And that first year we slept in a hotel and we went to the memorial, and I saw your survivor tree, and I said, wow, what a concept! An entire memorial built around a tree. Yes, there are tremendously magnificent other features in your memorial, but there's this tree that bore witness to the horror, this tree that shouldn't be living, this tree that in New York you'd probably cut it down and move on, but no, you saw fit to save this tree and build a memorial around it and keep it alive and keep it going. And so that stuck with me. So from that moment on, we've been close to the Okies. After that first year, we never slept in a hotel. They wouldn't let us. You know, they took us in their homes. They fed us. They let us stay in there. I don't know if they hid their silverware. They might have, but they kept us. They kept us coming back, and we came back every year, and we were part of their memorial. And we sat on those stone benches, and we cried along with you in all the anniversaries, your state centennial, and the 10-year. I call them sadiversaries of your loss. And so we became connected, and we stayed connected, and we believed in you like you believed in us, because you came to New York on September 11th, and we came here on April 19th. And so those days always are important to us. And not only is this a special day, this is the first time in 23 years that I'm not in New York City at this time of year. So the story of the tree is that we became close, and Pops and I always got calls back and forth. I lobbied very hard because when we took the tree out of Ground Zero, I never thought I'd see it again. But because of my friendship with Mike Kenny, he took a chance to let me design his house. And so I designed his house, and yes, he says I spent all his money, but I wasn't the one that put green Spanish tile on the roof. That was your decision. That was expensive. Anyway, again, I'm talking about twists and turns that brings us here today, because there's no reason for this to lead us here except for the fact that our leader at Ground Zero, Luis Mendez, was invited to the housewarming at Mike's house. When we finally finished the house, it was January 6th, the day of the Epiphany. Good Catholics knows what that means. That's really important to us. And so I guess I should have mentioned I'm an architect, and I was my main client was the Archdiocese of New York. So my life I've spent building and designing architectural functions for the churches and nursing homes and universities. So I knew the church. And when we got back to the site, and Mike was able to, and I was able to communicate with the Oklahoma City folks, so we got so close that I was able to, early on, get the tree back to the site. There was no guarantee that the tree would be returned to the World Trade Center site. I mean, it was damaged beyond repair, and I hadn't seen it since the 2001 when we put it on the back of a flatbed, and then I became part of the 9/11 Memorial. That's the part that I kind of skipped by. The fact that Lou Mendez was at Mike's housewarming party, and Lou Mendez had become one of the vice presidents of the recovery effort, the 9/11 Memorial Museum, and he goes up and basically having a drink, makes a side comment. I lost my architect. My architect, quit and moved on. I'm going to need a new architect. And I looked at him and I said, "No, you don't." He said, "What do you mean? You said you need an architect? You're looking at him." And he said, "Really? You'd leave your cushy city job and come and work for the memorial, give up your pension and all that stuff?" I said, "In a heartbeat." From that moment on, I became part of the design of the 9/11 Memorial. And one of my first jobs was to look at the plans. He dropped a stack of floor plans about 4 inches thick on my desk. He said, "You look at these plans. They're schematic, but this is what we're thinking of doing. Take a look, flip through the pages, familiarize yourself, take a few months, whatever it takes, learn every page." So as I'm flipping through those pages, I come across a page that is a sample of pavers on the plaza. So there was a sample page that said, this is what we could do with the pavers on the plaza, where we could inscribe things on them. Maybe we could put Vesey Street, the North Tower, basically all these little inscriptions. They were examples. They were not really part of the design. They were just suggestions. And on one of these panels, the word survivor tree. Survivor tree. This must be a reference to Oklahoma. And then it clicked. What happened to that tree we took off the site, that we took out of the rubble? I wonder what happened with that tree. And so my search for that tree began. Now keep in mind, I was just a project manager. I just joined the memorial. I had no juice, but I was going to find this tree. And so we searched. It took about 6 weeks because the people who knew where it was had retired, left city service, moved on to other states. It was difficult to find it, but we found it in the Bronx, where everything gets strong. It was in the most northern part of New York City. You can't go any further north and stay in New York City, because above it was a fence, and that was the boundary of Yonkers, New York. I found the tree. I went up to visit it. I took a look at it, and it was the ugliest damn thing I ever saw in my life. And I fell in love. I said, "You know what? I don't have any power on this planet, but I'm going to bring that tree back to the memorial if it's the last thing I do." 2 years later, the director of design had to leave for personal tragedy. I was promoted to the director of design of the 9/11 Memorial, and I now had the juice to make things happen. So went up there, got the tree again, and the tree was in bad shape, but it had started to recover. In fact, a family of mourning doves put a nest in it and grew, and baby mourning doves grew from it. It was symbolic. I had to do something for this tree. And the funny thing is, remember I told you when we saw it on the horrible plaza, it had just pushed out some leaves, and that's what told us it was going to live. It told us it wanted to live, and ironically, the very branch that told us it wanted to live had to be cut off because of the disease the tree had. any kind of open wounds would kind of invite infestation. And so they had to cut it, it had to prune it, and it finally started having brand new growth. And I said, this is it. This tree's coming back. And so I started lobbying. Now, I had some connections with the New York Times and the Post, but I really couldn't let people know what I was doing because everybody in the memorial thought I was an idiot. No one gave me any support. Why are you wasting time on this little weed tree, this little, ugly tree nobody cares about? What are you doing, Ron? So I basically did it on my own time. I went up and visited a tree on Saturdays, and I took care of people that I knew, brought them up, showed them the tree, a reporter from the Times, a reporter from the Post. We started lobbying, getting these little stories in the paper. Eventually, it caught on, and the mayor said, hey, this is something important. We need to get behind this tree. All of a sudden, I'm not the idiot anymore, I'm the guy that's making this happen. But remember, it wasn't my tree anymore. It belonged to the Parks Department. So I had to lobby with the Parks Department, tell them what my idea was, get them on board, and believe me, it took about 2 years of paperwork and constant lobbying. Finally, the tree's coming to the plaza. Yes, we're going to make this happen. I basically got my tree movers from Texas, Environmental Tree. They're going to come and move the tree, bring it down to the site. So everything was set in place for like February, maybe March, or maybe even April of 2011. And I'm in Italy picking the stone for the plaza. We had many decisions to make about the color of the stone, the different kind of veins, the variations, the finishes of it. And I get a call from New York that a nor'easter came through and knocked down the survivor tree. The tree was over half exposed. All its roots were torn and broken. The tree was going to die. I got on a plane from Italy. I came back and I said, you're not going to die on me now. We said, we're gonna get you out of here. I'm gonna take you to Jersey where all the other trees are. We're gonna set you up. We're gonna put you in intensive care. We're gonna take good care of you. And Tom Cox from Environmental Tree came in with a spade excavator, and we're about to take it out. And he looked at it and he said, Ron, I will do whatever you say. But if I take that tree out, it's gonna die. It's only living on half its roots. I gotta tell you, I don't have hope for it, but for sure, if we take it out of here now, it's gonna die. Oh, no. All right, Tom, what can we do? We're going to stand her up. We're going to put wet mulch on her. We're going to guy her down. We're going to dig down and put a box around her, and we're going to wait. So this is March. The tree flowers every April. Symbolic, huh? April of every year. And if it flowers completely 100% around, that means it's survived. That means it's going to go forward. If it doesn't flower all around, you know what? It may live a few years, but it's going to pass away. I don't think you want this tree on the plaza. I said, yeah, Tom, you're right. So, Tom, let's do it. Do what you got to do, and you come and keep checking on her. Come over here and make sure you watch her, and the Parks Department backed off because they know they really hadn't done all they could for the tree. And you know what? God is amazing because there were some tall oak trees behind the survivor tree, and they were keeping the sun from hitting that tree, and so it was growing lopsided. It was kind of bald on one side. Well, that storm knocked down those trees. All those trees were gone, so now the sun was going to hit it. And irony of ironies, those trees were turned into mulch, and that mulch got to the memorial before this tree did, because we used the mulch in all the walking areas. And so finally, it's 2010, and we're going to bring the tree down. We're going to say, this is its moving day, because what happened that following April, the tree completely was enveloped in white blossoms. It had survived, and it was going to be all right. And so we said, let's move her to the Memorial Plaza. Let's make it happen. And so I lobby my buddies. I get Tom, you're going to get a shovel. And Charlie K is going to get a shovel. I don't know what happened to you, Mike. We got to remember why you couldn't make it that day. But I made sure my buddies were there. And I stepped back because I wanted them to have this moment. I wanted to be just, back a wallflower. And so, yes, we planted the tree on the plaza. It plopped in. Everybody took a spade and helped it, be part of the permanent memorial. And then something interesting happened. When the Parks Department realized that I was taking the tree away and that it was going to be basically now my tree, they clandestinely, much like I took the tree out of the attack site, clandestinely took cuttings from all the new growth of that April. And it's hard to make a cutting from an existing tree, much less a tree that's so badly damaged, but they said we're going to try. And so you take the first growth from the spring and those 6 inches of branch, it doesn't know it's part of another tree, and you flip them vertical and you encourage them to grow their own roots. And sure enough, that tree grows its own roots with the right amount of love and care. And so out of 400 cuttings, only a dozen took. So they asked me to come up and take a look at them. I said, oh my goodness, you got clones of my tree? I said, yeah, man, we got these. We're good. If that tree doesn't make it, we got clones. We're good. I said, you guys are the best, you know, and we became so close with the Parks Department. As I was leaving, they said, wait, Ron, wait. This one is yours. And they gave me one. I have my own little tree, a clone of the survivor tree. I took that home to Astoria, Queens, where I have no greenery whatsoever, and it became my whole front yard. I plopped it in my whole 20-foot front yard, and I nurtured that tree. I massaged its roots. I gave it water. I gave it fertilizer. I moved it around so when the sun would always hit it, and I cared for that tree, and that was my baby, and it grew another foot under my care. So every morning I was so happy with my tree. I would wave to it. I would feel inspired by it. In April, it pushed out its own two little flowers. You know, it was, oh my God, I was in love. And then I got a call from Pops. And Pops had heard about the program where we had seedlings taken, and maybe, you know, he thought, you know, Ron, is there any way you get me one of those seedlings? I said, oh, Pops, you don't understand. It's so hard. It's an intense program. They put everybody through hell. It's so hard to get a tree. And I'm talking to him on the phone. I'm looking out of my front yard, and I say, I got you, Pops. I got you a tree. Don't you worry. You got my tree. And so the process began. We said, you know what? We're going to get this tree. I started looking up ways to get it out here, FedEx, UPS. Oh, my God, you have any idea how much paperwork and red tape it takes to take a tree out of New York? You know, it's got to be put in quarantine. Oh, it's got to be checked out, blah, blah, blah. I said, you know what? Bleep that. I'm calling in the Marines. I call in Tom. I call in Mike. I call in Charlie. I called in the top supreme officer of my family, my wife, and we said, we're taking that tree out ourselves. So, but we're going to go out in style. I go and I rent this amazing minivan. It's got all the bells and whistles. It's got leather seats. It's got the LCD TVs in the back of the headrest, stereo system, everything you want. I think it even gave us a massage as we're going. It was amazing, this minivan. So Charlie Kay, who, if you ever met him, he's not a shy guy. He was the epitome. There are no strangers in this world. These are just people I haven't met yet. And so when we get to the rental place, he's talking up everything. You know, in this truck, we got survivors from the collapse of the building. We've got recovery workers. We're going to take this tree to Oklahoma City. This is a survivor tree, blah, blah, blah. The woman behind the desk was so inspired, right? So we're going to nestle in our van. We're about to pull out. And you know how when you take a car out of a rental place, you got to bring it back with the same amount of gas? So it had about three-quarter tank full, and she looked at it and he says, no. I got to do this for you. You got to have a full tank. You cannot take this van off this lot without me filling it up for you. And she made us get out. We took the tree out, and she jumps in the van, and she runs over, and she crashes the car into the side of the pump. One of those steel bollards, she just takes out the whole front fender. And all of us go, ah. You know what? We're New Yorkers. No, we'll take it. It's okay. We'll take it like that. We love the car. We'll take it. Don't you worry. You know? No, they wouldn't let us take that van because it was in a crash. So they give us this other van, which, you know, is the vehicle epitome of the patriotic people, one with a crutch and the other guy with a bandage on it. I mean, it was really a basic van. That's what we wound up taking out here. So we had to make our own fun. We didn't have the fun in the van. And so the tree was a little bit taller. It didn't fit vertically in the van, so Judy had to hug the tree at an angle the whole way, right? And when we got to a stop where we had to get gas or food, we take it out, we water the tree, we show it to the sun, you know, we talk to it, and we get back in the van, and we keep moving, and we keep going. And we started to think about, you know, hitting sites as we went. And so we kind of like stopped at the St. Louis Arch. That was a decision of Tom. He decided to, hey, let's go see the Arch. So we get out, we look at it. I showed the tree the Arch. Wow, Tom and I are like, hey, that's amazing. The tree wasn't impressed at all. So anyway, we put the tree back in the car. We start driving, we keep going. And we all decided we were going to take turns. You know, it's a long drive. So our buddy, Charlie Kay, finally got to his turn, right? Now, Charlie K is a Vietnam veteran. He's a little bit older than us, but he's got a lot of bravado. He gets in the car, he steps on the gas, and 2 seconds later, his leg catches a cramp, and he almost puts us in a ditch. I said, oh my God, you can't drive anymore. So Tom and I took over, and we had to take over his shift, right? Now, Tom and I are the kind of drivers that when we drive, everybody else can sleep because we go nice and mellow. We don't speed. If we have to turn, we don't make a quick turn. We kind of slide into it and come back. So everybody sleeps. Mike Kenny, on the other hand, he gets driving, and he has to hit every rumble strip on the side of the road. He has to veer around and, making a change of a lane. He's 90-degree turn, boom, boom, boom. He drives and nobody sleeps. And Charlie drives and almost puts us in a ditch. So it was an adventure to get all the way to Oklahoma. But we made it, and when we finally got to the state line, we stopped one last time before going forward. And Mike, Tom, and I are looking at each other. We've done a lot of driving, and Charlie K has done no driving. Heck, that lady at the rental car place who drove it into the freaking gas tanks, she drove more than Charlie K did. So Tom and Mike and I devised this plan. We say, you know what? We got back in the van, and we're about to start up the car, and we say, hey, Charlie, we've arranged for a police escort all the way from the state line right down to the Murrah Building. And at the Murrah Building, there's going to be a press conference with hundreds of cameras on it. Well, Charlie knocked us out of the driver's seat, jumped in that driver's seat, and drove all the way in. All the while looking over his shoulder, hey, where's that police escort? Said, Charlie, it's going to be here. Finally get down to the Murrah Building. There's one camera, right? Well, Charlie flings that door open, jumps around, opens the back hatch of the minivan, grabs the tree from Judy's cradled arms, puts it on the ground, and introduces himself to the first reporter. And that's how we got here. So we made it. We got the tree part, got here, and we planted that little thing. And you know what? The tree was about 6 feet tall, but the pot was about 3 feet tall. So when we got the tree out, it was really kind of small, right? And one of the folks we meet here, we stay with Joanne and we stay with Dot and Gary, Joanne's husband. We basically, we have a family out here, and we met Kelly and Rick and their little kid, at that time Tegan. And so we plant the tree here, and guess what? That tree is taller. Keegan is taller than the tree. And we say, Keegan, you remember this moment. You come back every year and you gauge that tree's growth by yourself. And it wasn't long before the tree was taller than Keegan. Now, let me get this straight. I met Keegan recently. He's pretty tall, so he took up the challenge, and he's doing the best he can. But he's not as tall as this tree. So we planted the tree. We attended that amazing ceremony where the Okies planted our survivor tree, and we planted your survivor tree. And then we headed back to New York. And believe it or not, I caught a little bit of trouble when I got back to New York because I didn't tell anybody what I was doing, right? So my bosses at the 9/11 Memorial said, Ron, what's wrong with you? You should have told us about this. We should have brought in the Oklahoma City Memorial. We should have done this at like a joint venture. We should have yada, yada. What's wrong with you? I got so much hell. And my boss, Lou Mendes, said, wait a minute. That was his time off. That was his dime. And that was his tree. You leave him alone. And they left me alone. Because that was not about memorials. That was not about photo ops or opportunities to, get on the internet and make a splash. That was an act of absolute admiration and courtesy and compassion that the tree was given to me by the Parks Department. And it was my chance to show compassion and appreciation back to Oklahoma. And quite frankly, I was that tree's foster parent, and I looked at the tree and I thought, this tree deserves to have a better home and a better future. And I hope you all agree I made the right decision. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ron. Now for our dedicatory prayer, I want to ask Trustee Al Branch if he'll step up there for that, and then Christine Meredith will finish our program together. Alfred.
Let's pray together. Our kind, our loving, our gracious Heavenly Father, the word for the day is thankfulness. We're thankful to be here to dedicate this place. We're thankful for the the joy and the smiles that Frank and Kathy Keating always have on their faces, and for their caring and compassionate leadership, Christ-like leadership, and we needed it most. And we're grateful and thankful for men and women like Senator Lankford who reach across the aisle and seek to work together in Washington. And we're thankful for Ron and his friends from New York who tell this story, and we're thankful for a humble librarian named Brad Robison, Pops and Director Watkins, and others who have a passion to tell the story of what happened both here in Oklahoma City in 1995 and what happened in New York in 2001. And we're thankful for Oklahoma Christian, who dedicates this place, these two trees, this plaza, as a remembrance and a reminder that survival and hope and love and faith can come out of tragedy. And we're grateful, as Mayor Holt said, for this place, for those that lead here, that make an impact on the community, and honestly make an impact on the world, and help this place to be a shining light, a kingdom university that continues to train young people, not only with great academics, but for a place that will help them to give back and do as we're doing here today. We dedicate this place, and it's through your Son we pray. Amen.